have election of chair and vice chair. So I don't know if we want to do introductions, I guess maybe first before we do that.
Yeah, I'd like to introduce our newest member of the board and have him, maybe tell us a little bit about him and all that, okay?
Good morning. My name is Joshua Stouch. I'm the constable for Douglas Township, Montgomery County. I've been there since 2009. Prior to that, I was in Lower Pottsgrove for about a year and a half appointed. I currently serve in Berks, Chester, Montgomery, Lehigh, Delco, Philadelphia, anywhere I'm needed in that area. I am full-time. This is my 24th year in public safety. I've pretty much done it all from started as a 911 dispatcher the day I turned 18, corrections, constable, volunteer firefighter. I'm also the chairman of the board of supervisors for Douglas Township for the last 5 years. I'm the legislative director for one of the constables associations, Commonwealth Constables Association. I've written and introduced 2 legislative bills, one in the House and one in the Senate. Fortunately, they sat in judiciary and never went anywhere, but I still keep trying. I'm very passionate about the constabulary. I formerly was a consultant for Temple University as well last year or 2 years ago for review some of the basic training and Con Ed training as well to help keep the education relevant and current for constables. I've been trying to get on this board for a very long time, and thankfully I'm finally here. So I never give up. So you'll learn that about me. If you ever need anything done and you need somebody to do it, throw it in my lap and I'll be happy to run with it. I'm very thankful to be here, and I really look forward to participating with the board and contributing to the best of my ability. So thank you for having me.
Very good. Appreciate it. I'll start on the left end with Major.
I'm Major Bill Cawley. I'm the director of the Bureau of Training and Education with the Pennsylvania State Police. I've been a trooper. I just hit my 25 years ago earlier this month, and I'm one bad day away from retirement. Maybe 2. I might give you 2.
Good.
I'm a long way from that. I'm Magisterial District Judge Walden Davis. I've been a Magisterial District Judge now. This going into my 3rd term, so technically, I guess my 13th year. I'm also the president of the State Association for the Special Court Judges Association of Pennsylvania, which is the president of all magisterial district judges in Philadelphia Municipal Court here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And it's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Judge. I'm Craig Westover. I'm current chair, and I'm a 30-year constable out of Venango County, full-time, also an EMT. And so I very much have enjoyed being on the program and continue on. So I want to introduce my next lady to the right here, who's soon leaving us.
Hi, I'm Sherry Leffler. I am the supervisor for the Constables Education Training Program, and this will be my official last board meeting. So thank you, Craig.
I'm Patricia Norwood. I'm the court administrator from Chester County, and I've been dealing with constable issues for over 33 years. It's as long as I've been with the judiciary, and I'm happy to continue to be serving on this board. It's been a really wonderful experience.
Harry Albert, a constable since 1997. Still active, have a business as well. Very glad to be part of the board and contribute whatever we can contribute.
And John, you want to do staff?
Sure. I'm John Fowle, manager of the Bureau of Training Services.
Deb Williams, I'm the curriculum manager for the Bureau of Training Services.
Yeah.
Good morning, I'm Sally Barry. I'm the director for the Office of Justice Programs here at PCCD. I oversee John's unit, Bureau of Training Services, the unit of Juvenile Justice Initiatives, the unit of Criminal Justice Improvements, and the unit of Violence Prevention.
Tracy Beaver, I am the Constables Program Training Services staff.
My name is Nick Hartman, and like Tracy, I am also part of the Constables Education and Training Board staff.
And then remotely, I did see we have Ekaterina Scholl, who's our fiscal person for the program, Teresa Ford, and who else there, Tracy?
Dorothy Gigabelli, who is also with fiscal staff, and Teresa Ford.
All right, thank you.
Now we have, what, curriculum guys here?
Well,
Very good.
I'm Steve Shilo, with Penn State Justice and Safety Institute, along with Tony, who will introduce himself here in a second. We're happy to be one of the 2 training providers for constable training in the Commonwealth.
Nice to see you guys here in person.
Thank you, Chairman Westover. We appreciate the pressure or the invitation to join you in person today for the special recognition. Thank you. Thank you.
is Deborah Sandifer on?
Yes.
Okay, and Deborah Sandifer, who's PCCD's counsel. So,
Good morning.
all right, with that, we'll go to election of a chair. I'll
Good
entertain
morning.
any nominations for position of chair.
I will nominate Chairman Greg Westover to continue as chairman of this board.
Second that nomination. I, Walden Davis, second that nomination.
Thanks, quick. Are there any other nominations? Okay, seeing none, then I'll go ahead. We'll maybe do a roll call vote. We'll start with you, Constable Albert.
Aye.
Trish Margoden, aye.
Judge Davis.
Walden Davis, aye.
Bill Colley, aye.
Joshua Stouch, aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're reelected, Chairman Westover. So,
Appreciate your support, and I'm hoping that this year we can get some things finalized out. It is a long process with the state, with a lot of things that we do, and so some of the things we've had hanging on fire here, I'm hoping we get closed out this year, so I appreciate the continuity. I think that it's important, so I really do appreciate your support, and, I'll do my best to make sure that we do a great job all year.
and then if you want to run the election of a chair, vice chair, sorry.
Vice chair, so do I have a nomination for vice chair? I would like to nominate Patricia to continue another year as vice chair. I appreciate her ability as a court administrator, to give us input, and I really think she's been very helpful to me since since she came on board. So I'm making the nomination for.
I would second that.
Second that. Do I have any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, we'll go to roll call vote. Start with Terry.
Aye.
Aye.
Walden Davis, aye.
Bill Colley, aye.
Joshua Stouch, aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, very good. So we've got that completed and called to order. As far as moderating this, John, do you want to moderate this today, or how do you want to?
Just gonna let Sherry help you. You're pretty good at it, Craig, but
Yeah, I think we can get our,
it's her last meeting.
I think get our money's worth out of it.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
Great idea, John.
Okay, so the first action item on the agenda, I guess we do have some other things we need to address before that, however. Quick reminder to anyone that if to speak loudly, but also when you're asked to speak and clearly throughout the meeting, we do ask that you do keep your mics muted unless you are being recognized to speak during the meeting. Everyone, the meeting is being recorded. If there's anyone that objects at this time, you can leave the meeting. Anyone in attendance here object to the recording of the meeting? Hearing none, we will go ahead and go forward with the first action item for the day. Now, first we need to address a quorum. We also need to recognize that we do have a quorum of the board members to conduct business as normal today. We have already identified the PCD staff and the training delivery contractors. So the first action item for the board for this February 8th, 2024 board meeting will be the unapproved minutes of the November 2nd, 2023 meeting. And I'll pass it over to Nick.
The unapproved draft minutes of the November 2nd, 2023 meeting can be found on pages 2 through 10 of the board packet. Does the board have any questions, comments, or concerns regarding the board meeting minutes?
Everything looked good to me. Entertain a motion to approve.
Make the motion.
Second.
I'll second it, Bill Colley.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The second action item on the agenda for today's meeting will be the unapproved financial report for the February 8th, 2024 meeting. And I will turn it over to Ekaterina.
Good morning, everyone. I will go over the fiscal report numbers for the second quarter of the
Ekaterina, we
2023-24.
cannot hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Now?
I can
you
hear
try
her
again, please?
online.
Can you hear me now? No? Yes.
Katerina, I can hear you.
Okay, so what about
Just bear
the
with us
group?
one moment while we're having a technical issue.
Okay, so whoever is in the room cannot I'm checking my settings. Just 1 second.
Hi, Katerina. This is Katerina. This is Tony Luongo. I can hear you fine.
Okay, so it's only the group members in the room. So
Oh,
let's
okay.
see.
Okay.
So I'm okay, let me see chat.
Can you in the room hear my voice? I don't think they can hear any of us online.
Okay.
I can hear you.
Yeah, Deborah, I think you're right. I think there's a disconnect.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we send Nick a chat?
Yeah, I'm saying
Hear you now. Can you hear us?
I
Yes,
can't
Katerina,
hear
we
the
can
board.
hear
I
you
can
now.
hear everyone else.
okay. Can you hear me now? Yes?
Yes.
I can hear you
we
just
can hear you.
fine. I just can't hear the board.
Uh,
I think that have to be plugged in.
No, I can use it to pull it. No. Can you hear us now?
Yes, Nick, it's Tony Luongo. I can hear you fine.
Okay.
Herbert Brown, I can hear you fine too.
All right. Thank you.
Ekaterina, if you would like to go ahead and start your report, then we can hear you.
okay. Okay. Thank you, Sherry. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'm going over the fiscal report for the second quarter of the 2023-24 state fiscal year. The report will be on the pages 11 through 17 in your board packets. I'm going to start with statements of cash receipts, expenditures, and commitments, which is displayed on page 11. Under receipts, the balance carried over forward from the previous fiscal year was $3,433,114.41. The fees collected through the second quarter are $783,764.27. The total funds available as of end of the second quarter are $4,216,878.68. Under expenditures and commitments, total cumulative expenditures as of end of the second quarter are $568,679.35. Total cumulative expenditures and commitments as of end of the second quarter were $5,571,226.12. That includes $484,931.17 in administrative expenditures and commitments. The breakdown of these costs can be found on page 12. The total of uncommitted funds as of end of December 31st, 2023 is negative $1,354,347.44. Also, we have checks deposited for class reimbursements as of end of the second quarter in the amount of $39,828, and that will be also can be found on page 12.
I just want to remind the board too, we're at a period where we have old contracts that haven't been closed out and we have new contracts. So we have some overlap here. And until we close out the old contracts and any unused funds are liquidated and put back in the fund. So we, hit this period every other year kind of thing, where we have overlapping contracts, so.
The negative is normal.
Right.
So, right.
Yeah, so because we have to leave the commitment for the full contract until it's closed out, then any remaining balance comes back into the fund.
And then also as another reminder to the board, in the new contracts that we just established with the contractors, we did go for a 2-year budget period.
Yeah.
So instead of just having that 1-year budget, we have 2 years.
So
So that also increased those commitments to the board as well.
When does the fiscal budget begin and when does it end?
July 1st of 2023 through June 30th of 2024.
Thank you.
So how long has the negative balance been a common thing? I realize that it's not really a negative balance, but how long is it? How many years has that been a negative balance instead of being at least zeroed out?
I would say probably easily 10 to 12 years.
Okay.
So when the board first really started getting concerned about, what are the revenues and the balance of the fund, et cetera, it was probably back in about 2009, 10. If you look back, our meeting minutes from that point on, or in fact, that's when the board we first started tracking, projections. Where's the fund going to be in 5 years at current expenditure and revenue rates? So we started tracking that back in 2009 or 10, because the board was trying to say, how long is this going to be? And the good thing is, as I said, we've never paid full price for contracts, so there's always money that gets left. So it's kind of been a moving target, but it does, back in, 2018, 19, when the board went to, the board made the decision to go to online training. It's a cost saving. And then COVID came along, so that was a big cost savings for us. And then also too, reducing the firearms training down to show up and qualify. That was probably one of our most expensive things, was firearms. So
Just to also reiterate, we have gone through full audits by the state Auditor General.
we've been through 5 audits probably in the last 10 to 11 years.
As I continue to hear that we've been buying ARs for state police, we've been buying, equipment for state police, we've been buying uniforms for state police, we've been funding you guys on all kinds of stuff. And to dispel that, I've said at training classes that I instruct, that is not true. This money has all been accounted for. We've gone through extensive audits. I mean, how much time did he spend here on the last audit?
So the last audit, I want to say, from the time they started to the time they submitted their final report, it was probably 4 to 5 months.
Yeah.
And what I will say to you, the audits, over my period, I've been with the program since it started, early on, the audits were just numbers, money in, money out, did the numbers all add up? But the last probably 4 audits, the Auditor General has focused on process. So not just, money in, money out, but how do you make decisions to expend money? How do you ensure that contracts, invoices are vetted, so to speak, that the contractor is meeting the requirements, that they're spending the money properly? They looked at staff's internal procedures, how do we review an invoice? How does it go to fiscal? What do they do? It was very thorough. It's not just numbers. They look at the whole process. Who approves what? How does that go through? So again, it's not just looking at, dollars in, dollars out. So
I just wanted to dispel those rumors because they continue out there. They just reinvent themselves every so often. And I want to get it out there. There is audit reports you can look at. It'll tell you signed off by the AG that we're doing the right thing. My other thing is on the actual fee collection. It looks like that has improved somewhat, but that has what the issue has been. It's not that money has been given to any other agency, all the sheriffs, because we've also bought stuff for the sheriffs. But the fact of the matter is, it's inflation. It's the $5 surcharge since 1994 that hasn't changed. And it is counties that are only issuing 3 warrants instead of 8 or 9, or they've been, for whatever reason on the revenue stream. But the fact we can only charge surcharge one time, and because inflation has eaten us up since 94, that is what has caused the fund to erode, year after year after year. It hasn't been anybody taking money
spending it elsewhere. So if I could comment, so I asked John, I believe it was December, I actually asked John for all of the audits as far back as he had. And I spent probably 16 to 18 hours of my own time sitting in my office after hours and reviewing that. And I can wholeheartedly say you are 100% accurate. There was no mismanagement of funds. As much as we love state police, we certainly didn't buy them anything, or the sheriff,
To me, if you
or the
did,
sheriff's department in any way, shape, or form. So
we
I
appreciate
so,
it.
Mr. Chairman, I will totally agree with you on that. And I will agree with you on the CETA funding, and I will challenge it one step further. Not only is it a lack of the, we, even if you would just call it a COLA increase, from $5 and then every year it could go up, and the issuance of warrants and things like that. It's a further issue than that with the, if we want to call it human error, a choice not to. When a staff member from a district justice office issues a warrant, they physically have to add that CETA fee in there. Okay. And I personally know 100%, I could tell you in my county, in Montgomery County, not all staff members, when they go and put a warrant in, do they manually click on that CETA fund checkbox, whether it's by human error, whether it's the magisterial district judge's choice that I don't want to collect CETA, I don't think you should, whether it's the county's choice, whatever it is. And I think a simple solution to that, to correct at least that issue, separate from having to do legislative action to raise that $5, is get the AOPC to make that automated, just like it is for the CAT fund and all the other things, that automatically, when it gets issued out, that it gets added in there. And I find it hard to believe that it's not just a software issue where they could go in and reprogram that. I think that's something we need to that we need to look at and really push it. And I know that's not the PCCD's, that's not their computer system, but we're all on the same team and we're all working for the same goal. And I just find it hard to believe that we can't do something about that, because I think that would result in a significant fund collection.
Well, and I will say the board, that we discussed that, and it was back in 2014 or 15. The board and PCCD, we talked with AOPC, we were in discussions about that. And in fact, an AOPC representative came to a board meeting and talked, because the board sent a letter about that issue. Could they make it mandatory? It just never went anywhere. It's probably the best way to put it. And the other thing too is, one thing we forget about is, and I'm not trying to beat up AOPC, but it was about the same time frame. They automated a lot of the lesser offenses. You could go on and pay your costs and fines with a credit, some of the kind of summary stuff or whatever. So there was work that wasn't even making it to an MDJ's office to then, have the CETA even assessed. So, and I know when they rolled that out in 14, a couple of counties, of course, it's statewide. I've never been able to get any good data about, the total amount of work that might hit an MDJ, how much of that is, handled before it even gets there. Those kinds of, somebody goes on and pays their cost and fine online, so.
That's something I hadn't really given a lot of thought to, but yeah,
I mean, even if it's 15%, that the impact is proportionate to us.
John, on the data shows when they're issued. The data should show if that $5 was assessed, correct?
Right. No, I'm talking about the stuff that doesn't even make it.
Right. But
Yeah.
we should be able to show, if we were to ask for this meeting again and have those numbers and show them what that number is, would that make a difference?
I don't know. And again, that's AOPC, that's up to them. I mean, it's their system. And the other thing too, I will say this, that there are a lot of costs and fines that are collected for all kinds of programs, as people who deal with this. So, I mean, and only very few of them are automatic, are built in that gets assessed every time or whatever. So, again, yes, I mean, it doesn't hurt. We can reach out to AOPC and, they've always been great with us. For us pulling this data lately, they've been phenomenal.
And one way you could look at it and just see, a data request is, and I'm just going to make up a number here, a round number. Ask, all right, how many dockets were issued to a constable that were successfully completed and closed out, to all constables statewide? And if it's, 100, and then each one of them should have had a $5 assessment, then your number should be $500 in the CETA. And be willing to bet everything in the bank, you're not going to see $500 in that. It's not going to equal that. I mean, and that's a problem. It's a
Well,
huge problem.
And the other thing too is collection. So when we pulled a bunch of data back in 2015, or actually it was 2017, we had years 15 through 17. One of the other trends you see, and you have to keep in mind, is even if that CETA is assessed, the average county, we only got 50% of what was assessed in the same year. You know, so that warrant kind of keeps getting reissued. It was up to 4 years before we saw, and there was always 10% we never saw for whatever reason. But, you know, it got assessed in 2015. Maybe we didn't get that surcharge until 2018. So there's, even if a surcharge increased today, it would take several years for that impact to be felt, because we've seen that in the deputy sheriff's side. Their surcharge gets increased, but there's a lot of old stuff that got assessed under the old, and it takes time for that to be collected in, you know.
Yeah, because eventually we're going to get to zero.
Right.
And then what? Nobody has that answer.
That's what we've been working on since about what, 18, ever since this really reared its ugly head about, financials. But that's the one number that blows my mind though, when John revealed that was, surcharge, it could be 50 cents. And then a year from now, you get another buck, just to collect $5. How that got spread out over time, it just blew my mind how long it takes just to get that $5 surcharge.
And later in the meeting, I will be talking about the AOPC data, and I kind of have something to propose to the board about that, but I'll wait till we get to that discussion.
Any further discussion on the unapproved financial report?
Has the whole report been reported on?
Did she have more of them?
No, she-
I think I better say goodbye.
Glad you asked that. Do I have a motion to approve the financial?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second that motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Moderators.
The third action item for this board meeting will be instructor certifications, and I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Beaver.
Thank you, Sherry. Penn State submitted 2 instructor applications to be considered for board approval. The first is Timothy Cox. We are requesting requesting him to be certified in the general topic. He is currently a Cumberland County Constable. He just went through basic training, basic firearms in 2023. So staff recommends board certification for Timothy Cox for the general topic. And then the second is Michael Pop. We are requesting that he be certified for the firearms topic. He is currently a criminal investigator, a special agent for the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The staff does recommend board certification for Michael Pop for the firearms topic. Are there any questions from the board members? We do thank you, Tony Muha, for putting forth those 2.
You're welcome.
Do I have a motion to approve these 2 instructor applications?
I will make a motion.
I'll start that. Second that. Any discussion on that at all? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. These instructors have been approved. Thank you, Penn State.
You're welcome, Chairman.
So then we will move on to the first discussion item, which is my last program supervisor's report. And I apologize, I did not, I failed to bring copies down this morning. But I will see that you all get a copy of this. Basically what I went through was just the final 2023 training statistics for last year. Overall, I'll just do a very high level. Overall, we still had only about 85% of the constable population completing the online subjects. Again, that's 15% that did not get recertified then for 2024. So that's something to keep in mind. We had 718 constables out of 889 that were eligible to complete. So again, that was 81% because we did have constables who completed the 3 online subjects, but never enrolled themselves into the classroom subject. So that's one thing I want to put out there too, to the constable population, that you need to ensure that you are enrolling yourself into the 8-hour classroom subject material, and then also completing those 3 online subjects as well. And then so I'll move on to the 2024. So our statistics really are very similar to last year. We have 37 Con Ed classes that are scheduled this year. So far, we've completed 2 of those classes with 49% successfully completing that in-person training. So far for the online subjects material, we have 98 or a little over 10% have completed the legal updates. 107 have completed the lessons learned, which is about 11%. And then working with different abilities, we've had 93 complete that, which is about 10%. And we have had 2 first-time failures for the working with the different abilities. Our first Con Ed or our first annual firearms classes are coming up this weekend with Temple University, but we do have 37 classes, annual firearms classes scheduled for this year as well. We have 3 basic training courses scheduled. We have 1 in progress right now in the western part of the state. We've had 22 enrolled in that class. The next 2 basic trainings, we only have 1 and 2 enrolled in the 2 upcoming basic trainings.
Sure.
I'm
sorry. I don't
yes.
know that.
No, go ahead.
How many are enrolled this weekend?
We have 22 that are enrolled in the class. And then we have 3 basic firearms courses then that will follow up then as well after those basic training classes. The status of current certifications, there are 785 active and certified constables. 613, which about 78%, are also firearms certified. And since the inception of the program in 1996, we have issued 4,837 certifications to constables and deputy constables. Just a couple other things, the regulation changes. I have been working with legal counsel on the required documentation and the process for that external review once it leaves PCCD. That's one of my last projects to complete before I retire. And just speaking of my retirement, and this will probably go out at some point in a training bulletin, but I just wanted to highlight a little bit of my career with the Commonwealth. I'm retiring on March 8th is my official retirement date. And I started with the Commonwealth in 1987 as a clerk stenographer with the Department of State in the Bureau of Professional and Occupational Affairs. In April of 1994, I transferred to PCCD into the executive office. And since then, I have worked in the Office of Victim Services, Victims Compensation Program, the Education and Outreach Program. And then in March 17th, 2008, I was fortunate enough to transfer to the Constables Program. So I've actually been with the Constables Program almost 15 years. That 15 years did fly by, I must say. And I've been the supervisor for the program since 2013. And I just want to do like a little thank you to everyone. I just want to say thank you to the numerous board members that I've had the honor of working with over the past 15 years of the program. I've also forged many personal relationships with both BTS staff and PCD staff over those 30 years. I have a lot of great memories of the program. We always had agency take kids to work days, our annual agency days that we had back, it's probably been 12, 15 years since we've had one of those agency days. And then we've always had, a lot of team building, fundraising type events at the agency as well. I've also had the opportunity to work with many administrative and law enforcement professionals through our training delivery contracts and curriculum development contracts, both with Temple, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and Penn State universities. And I just want to thank you all for your dedication and service to the program as well, because without you, we wouldn't be putting on the training, we wouldn't have the curriculum to put on the trainings, and so it's all relevant. I've also had the privilege of working with many IT staff throughout the agency. I've gained a wealth of knowledge from all of them. From the DAVE system and VCAP to our current SET system to the CIS system. So I've learned a lot from them over the years as well. I would also like to thank John Fowl for his leadership over the past 15 years. He has been a great mentor, has taught me a lot of valuable lessons about being a professional leader, but also being an empathetic leader. And these are, if I cry, I'm sorry. They're tears of happiness, not of sadness. But most importantly, John has always taught me to lead by example to your staff, and while also maintaining that family first attitude. Like our families are always first in everything we do. So I gotta take a drink.
So would you say then your 15 years has been the highlight of your career with the gospel
I
program?
would say so, yes. I would say so. I would say so. And then also just a huge thank you to Tracy and Nick, as well as Kathy Clark and Wayne Howard over the years. You've been great staff. And for putting up with all my analness and my sherryisms over the years. We've always made a great team. I value both the personal and professional relationships that I've created with you all. And you did make coming to work enjoy. To the constables and deputy constables, I've had very good relationships. It's been a pleasure working with you all over the years as well. But to you, I would like to say, I'm hopeful that all of the constable population can come together as a united front to get critical legislation passed, just to clarify those rules and duties of a constable throughout the Commonwealth. That's something that I hope that this board can achieve at some time in the future. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that it does happen. And last but not least, to my husband and my daughters, thank you for always being my sounding board on my stressful days, and talking me off the cliff many times, or having a cold beer ready for me when I get home from work. So thank you. It has really been a pleasure working with you all. And while I'm really looking forward to this new chapter, I am hopeful that our paths may cross in the future at some point. Much love to you all, and left left. Thank you.
Just really have enjoyed spending time with you. So
I've learned a lot from you as a constable as well. And if I ever had questions, I could always reach out to Craig or any other constable on the board for assistance. So thank you.
All righty then. Move on to informational items.
And that will be elective firearms survey results, and that will be Nick Hartman.
On pages 20 and 21 of the board packet are the 2023 elective firearms course survey results. I'll just read briefly from the discussion and then go into the staff recommendation and turn it over to the board if they have any questions. In 2023, the topic of elective firearms training was discussed at various board meetings and in the firearms work group. The survey was sent out to over 850 constables and deputy constables, and the program staff received 318 responses. Based on the responses of the survey, which was a yes and no and a multiple choice, it can be inferred that as far as elective firearms training, even if qualification were involved, that it would not, the constable population at this time is not currently interested in that topic. And regarding advanced firearms, it was also inferred that constables would not be willing to pay more than $150 for advanced firearms. Program staff recommends that no elective firearms or advanced firearms courses be scheduled at this time. The objective of providing additional firearms training was not supported by the constable's feedback. The likely outcome, therefore, would be the cancellation of any scheduled courses due to cost or class size minimums not being met. An additional concern is the cost and time associated with administrative duties of both program staff and the training delivery coordination in an event that a class be canceled. Does the board have any questions regarding the information?
If I don't have a question, I have a couple comments if I may. I'm very disappointed to see those results. I don't know how my fellow constables here feel, but I go out to the range with these guys to qualify, and I'm sometimes scared to the point where I wear a vest when I go to the range. I'm a big gun guy. I love guns. I love shooting, competitive shooting, target shooting, self-defense shooting, things like that. And I would have thought for sure that more people would have elected to, separate from the money issue, to just support that. I do feel part of that reason may be that I know a lot of guys are getting outside training on firearms. So they're going to private entities that are throughout the state that are running courses, and they'll run them for $150 and include the ammo, where we may not be able to do that financially. And I understand that part. But that doesn't necessarily get you the same kind of training, across the board that all of us have. I remember in the early 2010s, Temple University, the crew down in Southeast PA, when we would do the advanced firearms, we were doing like shoot house type stuff, moving in teams, shooting while moving in teams, rotating plates with balloons, and call out a color and you're hitting it. I mean, it was excellent firearms training. And now we went from that to literally zero. And there are guys that are not even taking their firearm out of their holster other than when they go in and out of a prison, and never firing it from the time that they qualify in January of this year till the time they qualify in the time in January next year. And it's concerning. The second comment that I have that I'm disappointed in is the result of how many constables responded, 318. Is there any, and I don't know if we can do this, but it's just an idea. So we put it out to 850 constables, right? And 318 got back. So what is that? About 35, 40%. Is there a way when we do these type of elective surveys to not make them elective? Meaning, as part of your Con Ed, the end of your Con Ed, you have to take this survey. I don't care what the results are. If the results then are 850 people and it was overwhelmingly nope, okay, I would accept that. I'd be sad about it still, but I would accept it. The fact that 40% are speaking for the rest of them, that's an issue. I feel as though we need to make this, if we're going to have surveys where we're going to make the determination whether or not we're doing additional firearms or advanced firearms courses, which are life safety issues for constables and the general public, I think we need to make it mandatory somehow.
And we used to, of course, before Survey Monkey and those kinds of things, the only drawback to that, we had to wait till the end of the training year, because we have training from January to October,
Right.
November,
Right.
to kind of get results.
Right.
And, that's something we can do again. I mean, say, hey, look, we don't care what you put on the survey, you have to complete the survey and with the eval as well. So, we'll take that into, point. And the one thing I would say is, I think,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, Judge.
Mr. Fowl, can I just add a caveat to
Sure.
that? So, statistically, what happens, not just with constables, most individuals, a severe amount of individuals are procrastinators. So even if you do that, you're still not going to get the response until probably late October, and that's why I asked Sherry, I posed the question, how many people are registered in this weekend? And it's 22, but whatever that number is, it's probably going to multiply by the October course because everybody's trying to get it in.
Mhm.
They don't really take that opportunity to do it. And again, that's not a constable issue. That's a people issue,
Well,
right? So by the time just based on my terms I'm looking at things as an entirety, this is typically what we see. So we're still probably not going to get that volume of the survey until the latter part of October.
right, and you're exactly right, Judge. For the history of the program, we even see this on the deputy sheriff's side with the online training. A lot of people knock it out in that first quarter, January, February, March. It kind of drops off in the warmer months, and then everybody's rushing to get into those last class firearms or Con Eds. Deputy sheriff, that program, they're always sending sheriffs going, hey, here are all the guys haven't done their online training, and then there's this kind of mad rush. So you're right. And historically, we've always seen that. And our training schedules have always reflected that. We're kind of light in the summer months on what's available, but we pack the fall because people wait. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Judge. And the one thing I think, one thing we were concerned about, until you get a bigger response, we end up in the dilemma where we offered OC and baton as optional. When we first offered that, everybody took it, and then it dropped off, and it was 2% of the population would take advantage of it because the main reason, you're right, they were getting it somewhere else. Their local PD or a county association would hire guys and get everybody certified. So they're finding the training elsewhere, and eventually the board got rid of that because it was money we were expending for, 2%. So,
And Josh, actually, this survey was one of the highest responses we ever received on Survey Monkey.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been way less in the past. And even in the past where we have done demographic surveys in the classroom, when we have the printed survey, for you to sit there and fill it out, we still would not get 100% responses back because people wouldn't fill them out, return them. So, but there is probably a way that we could link a survey, to like the end of one of the online
Maybe the
subjects,
online,
that they would
yeah.
have to complete it,
Yeah.
to move on to the evaluation and the test.
Yeah, and I understand we might not get it till October of that year, but at least now you're getting 100% participation from everybody that's taking that. And it at least gives you an idea, even if there was a way then to work that into half of the next year. I know things have to be done ahead of time, but just something that's,
it's good points.
Yep.
So,
And demographic survey is on my to-do list for staff.
Firearms wise, this whole thing came about just because as an instructor, Tony over there, he's out on the range, he sees how these skills are going downhill.
Mhm.
The draw skills, how they run the reloads, just magazine manipulation.
Mhm.
The equipment, how the equipment's set up on their person, we're seeing that erode. And I'm trying to figure out a way that we can get some training back into firearms. I mean, I am not happy with show and shoot. I mean, show and shoot is just what it is. And it's putting holes on a target and getting at least 45 points on each half. That's all it is. And we've got it somehow. And that's why I talked to John about, do we have airsoft that we could do? We do, thinking outside the box. What else can we do where we don't have that cost of ammunition? Because that is the big part of it. And the whole reason we went to show and shoot was because of the finances, which the finances going down, especially during the pandemic. We got hammered hard with collections dried up. I mean, they dried up because nothing was getting served, nothing was getting, issued. So.
And the other thing with firearms too is it's very manpower intensive, as you know. So if we have 20 guys in a class, the ratio of instructors, to run a safe range and, people, it's not just a safe range, to have the instructors there to provide that feedback or, the less people I'm assisting as an instructor, the more feedback I can get individually and coach them, bad habits or whatever. So it's also manpower intensive, and that's a cost as well.
We have a ratio, but I'll be honest with you, I'm like you. Tony can attest this. We've had some classes where I almost wish we'd have had a safety officer on each shooter.
Mhm.
Seriously, I'm not being facetious because too much gun waving around, and magazines falling on the ground and, trying to go to the ground and tell them, no, you can't do that, So, because we really aren't instructing and during show and shoot. This is more of a safety officer thing than it is anything else.
yeah, there is no instruction on that.
Yeah. And, Tony, anything you want to offer on that? You've been saying.
No, just that the weapon skills are very much diminishing over the years. I mean, it's getting worse. And the basic handling that they get and we drill into them in basic class kind of erodes when they come back for the annual training. So
If we had booked this back up to an 8-hour day, with the qual, if we had some work on the fundamentals, but I really implore the board to consider that because we are getting to that point, last farmers class I was in on, it's like, wow, we got to do something.
Well, what I could offer is, we have plenty of data. We would just have to update. What would an 8-hour day cost? What would it run the board, per 8-hour day times, we got on average schedule 35 firearms calls a year, just to give the board at least a ballpark idea. And I would put in there, we're not providing the ammunition because that was a huge cost. And so we can put together kind of just, here's what an 8-hour day and generally what it would look like, 2 hours for the qual and then 6 hours, roughly on, and what would we review/cover?
Got a lot of dry fire skills, cost us nothing, like the instructor, and the elective course, of course, the caveat was we put in their money, but it didn't cost you any money other than you brought along an extra 50 rounds or an extra 100 rounds, whatever that might be, for the class. Maybe that could be right into it.
if I may, maybe even incorporate airsoft in the morning aspect of it. I mean, you're getting the same skill handling down. You wouldn't have the safety issues as much with it.
and then have the qualification. So you'd be doing the same thing, but more cost
Yeah,
effective.
because you could certainly, the only challenge to that anybody would argue is, well, everybody carries a different firearm. Well, the easy way around that though is you do your weapon manipulation skills dry, in a safe closed range, do in and out holster, all your mag reloads, everything. You do that first, right? And then you switch over to the airsoft and have all the airsofts be the same firearm across the board, whether it's something you carry or not. Because again, you're just going for your sight picture, alignment, trigger squeeze, all those different things. You can do that very easily with airsoft and at minimal cost. But I'm concerned about the things I'm seeing at training and out on the street. The firearm safety is.
Well, and the other disservice we're doing to the constables is even MOPEC went to shooting and moving, okay, and stuff that we're not doing. Our courses are pretty much static. So you could incorporate airsoft into that, as you said, Josh, with that portion of it with shooting and moving, and we wouldn't have the issues we would with a live firearm.
Couple comments. This may be to the constables. Is it generally known to the constable population how the skill set has deteriorated? I mean, is this generally known, or is this just kind of known at this level of the trainers and the people who see the results from the schooling? Because I mean, I know Sherry, you reported 613 were firearm certified.
Correct.
And we only had, less than half of them responding to the survey. I mean, I would personally, I would not feel comfortable making a decision on not providing that additional training that clearly is needed without maybe making sure that everybody really understands why we're surveying the population, because the experts, the trainers are seeing the skill set diminishing, which is not only a detriment to, the constables themselves, but to just the basic services that they're providing for, and their safety. So I don't know. I feel like, it sounds like, just listening to the comments, that we definitely want to make these opportunities available to the constables, but I'd still be really curious to see. I do feel like we need to get more input.
I think telling the instructors who are outspoken, with the constable saying, hey, you really need to work on stuff. So truly, our job for the show and shoot is not there as an instructor. I mean, basically, they come in, they take a firearms test, we do a weapons check, report all the information, boom, they go out on a range, they run it. We're there as safety folks, basically. And I'll be honest with you, some instructors are better than others at saying, hey, you really need to, work on some stuff here. But I think this forum, because I know this stuff's all being picked up on, because I know every class I teach, it ends up out on the constable chat rooms. I know the chat rooms are talking about, he said this or he said that, and they're picking apart everything we do. Well, here's something for the chat rooms. Your skills are diminished. We need to get back in the groove here and start being able to draw our firearm to be able to successfully load it and run it and be able to work, emergency lockbacks and tactical reloads and moving and shooting. This skill needs to come back. So I don't know how much more we can do at this point, Trish, but you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
If they don't know today, they know.
Yeah.
We're not happy. Not happy.
And our failure rates have also gone up since we went to the show and shoot as well. So, I mean, those individuals are now, having to pay to come back and retake the annual firearms. But I mean, last year we had 33 failures.
Yeah.
So again, that's, 5%.
And you got really quality firearms instructors. You've got folks with a ton of experience out there that can run a line and can show people how to and work with them. So it's not a case of we're not providing quality instructors, because we are.
And as far as like, do constables know? Yes, they know. You get on the line, they're like, he's left-handed, you're right-handed, don't stand next to him, you're gonna get shot in the foot. They know, they all know, but we're not saying it to each other.
And this, Trish, came out of, we had a work group in 22 and we had constables, and the constables in that work group, they wanted, because they thought that there are guys out there who need, whether it's just refresher training on the fundamentals or guys who do well, but they really enjoyed the advanced firearms. We would change the topic every year. So now it's officer vet. What happens if you're wounded and you have to manipulate your weapon? or working with the contact, cover officer, how do you engage target or multiple targets? We changed, and that was a very successful, but we limited it to, you had to score 88% or higher. So 9 times out of 10, the shooters in those courses were already kind of at an elevated level. I think the concern is for the guy who kind of struggles. And I will say this, in my 30 years, I think there's still a lot of people who come to be a constable who have little to no previous formal firearms training or experience. And so our basic course is maybe the first time they've had formalized, basic training on firearms.
So on the line, when you see a guy with long fingers and he's indexing with the tip of his finger and he's shooting to the left and hardly hitting the paper, they don't know better. They don't know any,
That's it.
they don't know.
And this is not a slight on anybody, but I think we have to, in the basic training, the instructors have to break a lot of bad habits.
They do.
People grow up hunting or whatever, and, but it doesn't mean they had proper, training or knowledge on, how to sight a target and, how to engage it and, all those things, sight alignment, sight picture, et cetera. So I think in our basic course, that's why the instructor group said the only thing they really recommend changing in the basic training was additional range time, to run them through those additional skill sets and repetitions.
I
So
have one more comment about the surveys. There's data out there that says, surveys, only 30% of them get response to the first one. 10 to 18% get more respond with the second one. There are things that we can do inexpensively if we wanted to follow up to those surveys. And I'd be willing to talk to you guys about maybe being able to offer that as a service. Because we do that now. I do that for entities now, but you have to follow up with them because they're going to say, oh, I have to do this. And it goes in their inbox. 3 more days go by. Now that thing's at the bottom of all their inboxes, now they'll all switch to Microsoft, which deletes them in 60 days. So they're gone. They don't even remember. So they need that text message. They need that follow-up call. They need that to get a response. Now it feels like we're bending over to get the response, but if we want the data, let's go through the exercise to get it. And then the last comment I have, I wouldn't give them a choice on how much they would pay. I'd figure out what the cost was, that this is what it's going to be. Who wants to do it?
well, and the reason we did that is I revert back to the OC baton issue. And because we set the, early on, we provided it free. And then we even explored, because the board was on the fence about eliminating it or not, even for that 2%. And then at one point we said, well, this is what it would cost. And the results were basically the same. And so the board never implemented charging guys. And eventually we just said, we're paying for something that's not benefiting the large portion of the population. So dropped it.
And the question always comes up, and this comes up from constables at large, is why can't I just go qualify with my local PD? And the thing is, the difference between that, the OCAT and anything else was, this was in the legislation that we provide firearms training, that you are, in Supreme Court rules say you will be firearms certified by PCCD to serve judicial process. So we cannot hand that off. Yeah, the OCAT wasn't mentioned, the baton wasn't mentioned, all that other stuff. But the fact was firearms is, and that's why it's non-negotiable. But I continually get those questions. Why can't I go to a local PD when they qualify and run with those guys? Because there's no standardization of what course of fire they shoot. They could be shooting pop cans. We don't know. But we're not going to stamp that on. Legislation says we, PCCD, provide firearms training to serve judicial process. Period. That's what it is. So there is no negotiation here on that. But that always is a question that, pops up. Just don't understand why you won't let us waiver. Hey, I qualify, because I'm also a cop, or I'm also a parole guy, or I'm also something else besides being a constable. Why can't I use that ball? Sorry, we can't.
Well, at the end of the day, the one thing I keep hearing is, and you all heard it, I'm sure as well, is constables want to be more recognized for everything, right? That starts with professionalism and it starts with your training. So if there's that old saying, everybody wants to get to heaven, but nobody wants to die, right? The only way to get to heaven in this is by, getting this professional training and having these annual shoots and advanced firearms. So I can't I can't wrap my head around why guys want.
And the message needs to be, if you're going to be an elected constable, this is what you have to do for training. That should be the message,
Yeah, sure.
period. And that should be said everywhere. Should be on disclaimers on everything that we log into.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, this is just a personal opinion related to firearms. You should not be going out in a law enforcement capacity in a law enforcement appearing uniform and serving judicial process without a firearm on. It's a, again, we'll go back to, it's a life safety issue, not only for you, but for the general public, the defendants, the plaintiffs, whoever it is that you're out there. People have no idea what the difference is between a trooper's uniform, a constable's uniform, a municipal police officer. If there's something going on and they come to you and it's a life safety issue and you have to respond, or you're out at an eviction or something like that, and you're faced with a lethal force issue, you have no option if you don't have a firearm at all. You better be real good at talking. And I just, it's sad to me that more people aren't more serious about their training on these type of things.
You currently have to qualify once per year,
Once per year. What's your program do?
twice.
Twice a year.
One's the actual qualification, one's like the stress course.
Okay.
And see, that's the thing, when you look at what we do, it's on the lower end of standards that are out there. You know, a lot of other sworn officers in Pennsylvania, they qual once, they do a, you know, what I call like a combat shooting, you know, stress and distractors or whatever, or all those kinds of things. And we're kind of on the lower end. Even 80 hours or I'm sorry, 40 hours for basic firearms is very low. It really is. Deputy sheriff's it's about 88 hours, you know, in the academy. And then, you know, a lot of the other ones you look at, it's almost double just for firearms. Problem is, we're so limited on the hours we have statutorily.
And you know, a number of years ago, we had to stop the bleed. We had, you know, tourniquets, things of that nature. One of the outside vendors that provides firearms training that I really liked was during their course, we were shooting, they'd say, you've just been shot in the arm, apply a tourniquet. You shut down and you applied a tourniquet, and then they would check. So you got tourniquets on tight or direct pressure, whatever. But they incorporated that. And I've often said, you know, at Blackwater, when I was doing a lot of training down there, it was really scenario-based training, but they incorporated a number of different issues at the same time. So you were truly gunfighting. Gunfighting also was doing self-aid because you got hit. And so those are the things that, you know, I would envision when you say advanced class. Basically, that's just polishing the basics, right? That's what advanced is, polishing the basics, and incorporating some of these things to get their interest, you know, because a lot of it is you have a lot of outside gun vendors out there to do training, but what are they selling? Basically the sizzle, not the steak. They're selling the sizzle, how they market it, how they package it, you know. So if you know, hey, you're gonna get med training, you're gonna get firearms training, you're gonna get, you know, whatever. This is all incorporated into it, flashy ad, and that's what they sell, you know. And to a certain extent, a lot of it's good stuff. But the thing is that to get folks interested in like this elective firearms course, I think those are the kinds of things that how you package it up, how you present it, you know, is where you get the buy-in.
And not to mention the ball ammo to qualify with that. If it's the same grain,
Yeah.
like they do.
And I've been getting calls on that. You know, ever since our last meeting, I've been getting calls, and what went out on the, you know, the newsletter.
Right, and that was a recommendation. And, you know, that's what it was. And, you know, it's, you know, the one thing that is very unique, and constables know this, is that whole independent. You know, you don't have a department that says, here's the firearm you carry, here's the, you know, type of round you're gonna carry, and, you know, so it's, I will tell you, trying to oversee a statewide training program and teach best practices and fundamentals, but the people you're training have that luxury of choice. And it's true. And then it's hard to, you know, give that to them. And I think we've done well. We don't make everybody happy, but ultimately is their liability. You know, when I talk to constables, they're like, well, you know, I'm like, that's your choice, but that's also your liability, you know, for how you do your job on a day-to-day basis. So.
And there are legislative fixes to that. You know, just an example, and I think if I'm not correct, mistaken, PSP oversees, for example, body cameras. as far as that list of, these are the acceptable vendors of body cameras, and, you can select from this list, and this is what, has to be used by municipal department, sheriffs, whoever it is that's using the body cameras. That's all done legislatively. There's legislative fixes to a lot of these problems that we are all seeing.
But that's a pushback on, especially with the body cams. I continually get pushback and I literally the last basic training class, and that's my witness right there, Tony, was when we covered that, I said, here's what the legislation did not include. It did not include constables, but here's what did include: a lot of money to be spent for storage of the evidence, because that's what it is, that needs to be kept, and it can't be just downloaded onto a flash drive and thrown in a file cabinet. There is certain set procedures for evidence storage. Those requirements are the things that, financially, do you have the capability to do it? Number one, but number two, have you talked to your district attorney? Is your district attorney in your county, would he buy into you carrying a body cam? So you're all adults here, it's your liability. All we can do is bring forth, here's what the cases say, and then from there you make that decision. But the fact of the matter is, we as a training entity have to, it's incumbent on us to say, here's what the case law is. Here's what here's what the law says, the regs, the storage. And you're not, because I always hear this, oh, we're being discriminated against. No, you're not being discriminated against. It comes down to storage. Are you able, because it's nice to just look at the first part of the legislation, but nobody wants to read down through everything the Attorney General added on for storage requirements, and that's why a lot of small departments don't have body cams, because they can't afford the storage requirements. They'd like to have them, but they said, we can't afford it. It's just not there. Unless they provide grants, we can't do it. So that's a pushback we get. All right. Well, I think we hammered that hard, Nick. So I guess you have the next part of this Eastern Regional Continuing Education classes. So blame me on that.
Sure. Due to an oversight by program staff, continuing education courses locations were limited in the 2024 training year in the southern area. Program staff in Temple have actually already rescheduled 2 locations. PSU Middletown is being added, and it's already in the set system for March 18th, 2024, and PSU Berks for July 27th, 2024. There is a systems announcement when you log into the SETS homepage that you are able to transfer. However, if you've already started to do your online trainings, you'll have to contact me at program staff so that I can manually make the transition for you, because we already have grades entered into the system. Some of the classes, the one in PSU Middletown, I have about 10 spots left as of one before I checked for this meeting, and the other class does have more availability at PSU Berks. Does the board have any questions?
So the phone call complaints I've been getting is, Craig, I can't get any training in the middle part of the state. There's nothing available. Farms. So have we been able to alleviate any of that?
For the middle part of the state?
Yep.
Like what region?
Like Dauphin County, right here.
Okay, I know that when working with Lou, when we were looking at this region, one of the issues we had was Lancaster Range this year, which is very popular for a lot of our constables, is going to be having renovations. We're just not sure yet when those renovations are going to occur. So unfortunately, we lost that range, which usually has anywhere from 2 to 3 classes I know of, and those classes are usually full.
Right, and we made a deliberate choice, because when we built the schedule, Lancaster couldn't tell us when those renovations were going to occur. And as Nick said, we run several classes there. We didn't want to schedule them, guys sign up. And then now we find out we got to cancel 3 of them because the range is being renovated at that time period. So that was kind of a one-off this year for Lancaster. I mean, we use that we do basics there, but we
And then
just.
recently started using the hack range as
Right.
well. I don't know if you're-
Well, and then the problems with the hack, we started using the hack range, and I don't know how many people are familiar. Back in the fall, the hack range was suddenly shut down due to their filtration system. Last I know, it is still not available. So in fact, we had a basic firearm scheduled there. And we found out maybe 3 days before the course was supposed to start. Hacked, and I'm not trying to beat up hack, but it was not handled well. they did not reach out to people who have ranges scheduled and say, hey, we're shutting the range. We kind of found out on the side. And so we were able to luckily, Palmyra Sportsman's Club was available. We moved at the last minute there. So Hack, that's another major range here that is still not available. So.
And then over the weekend in Murraysville, we were made aware what, another range or two. So we're picking up information. If you know of ranges, you come to training, feel free to share that information with the instructor or coordinator there, because, that has been an issue, especially since the pandemic. We've lost ranges. And like I said, the phone calls I was getting beat up for was, I'm here in Dauphin County. I can't get into I got to drive, for my class. What's going on? You guys, taking it out on us. No, it wasn't anything, because it's because of availability. It's availability of it.
And keep in mind, for example, and we go out to ranges, we're competing. So when a major range like Lancaster or Hack is out of commission, we're competing with every local department. Not everybody uses Hack, but I mean, you take one major range out of the equation, it gets harder and harder. We've gone and looked at ranges and said, yeah, this isn't gonna, there's a lot of private gun clubs and those kinds of, we want to make sure they're good ranges to meet the training, all the qual standards, as well as, we can fit the right number of people on the line safely, et cetera.
Yeah.
We had a range up in the Northeast we used for years, but for them to bill us became a huge problem. And so we finally eliminated it because they couldn't get their act together on properly billing us in timely manner and that kind of thing.
Is that the one down by the Ren Fair?
No, this was
How about that
kind of
place?
the Northeast.
That was a pretty good place, that gun club back behind the Ren Fair. That was pretty open.
Yeah.
That's when George, was George's last name, was an instructor. Lived up in, where they do the pitch and shoots. It's a drive all the way. It's right behind, it's on the opposite side of the, street.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, that was it. I mean,
But
they-
that's what I mean is, we're competing for range. So we lose one range or whatever, we're now competing with whatever's in the local.
It
area.
behoove us to check other ones and get them in the coffers in case this happens again in the future.
Yes.
That's kind of what we're working. So this one that he was talking about, sounded pretty good, didn't it?
Yeah, we're actually having a basic class there in April.
Okay, good.
April, I think it is. Yeah.
And and sometimes ranges don't want to meet with us kind of when it comes to, cost. When 717 Armory right down opened up, we went down and talked with that gentleman and, I said, look, he wanted to get law enforcement in using his range. I tried to explain to him, they don't have big budgets. I said, but you get repeat customers. They're qualified once or twice a year. I told him the kind of classes we run. He didn't want to budge on his price cost. He wanted to charge us a lot more than other ranges. So we did not go that route. And this past year, he filed for bankruptcy. So that range is now.
What's the ballpark cost of a range? I know there's gotta be it's not.
Yeah, I don't want to off the top of my head, just because it does vary. Some places, gun clubs, they charge us a lot less versus maybe, a commercial range or, something. So I don't want to give you bad. I can get that for you, Harry.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of bigger places too. I just.
Yeah.
If you were to rent it out, how much would you charge? I mean, I'll ask. Problem asking.
But in some areas of the state, it's a real search to find range. I mean, you're out there asking questions, driving around, hey, stopping at the gun shops, whatever, to find out, hey, where do people shoot at them in this area, and that's part of the deal, trying to find out what's out there, and then availability, and then are they willing to go along with the billing that's required, state in order to use that range, so. And then some don't want to tie up their range for a 3-day weekend.
Right.
We were doing 3-day weekends, especially with the previous firearms training, so.
That was the 717. That was one of his issues. He didn't want to close it because he didn't have a lot of firing points. He had enough, but he didn't want to close it off to civilian business for 2.5 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right, any questions on that report from Nick? Okay. Here we got that.
Yep, next is from the OPC update.
Okay, so, Dr. Orff, we presented some data at the last meeting. He has kind of been pulled, doing some other data projects for PCCD. He was not able to complete a report for this board meeting. However, one of the things he did ask is he wanted to have a couple board members and we form a little work group. And we go through this data because what he would like from the board is looking at that data that now we can get annually from AOPC. We've kind of got it fine tuned to develop some metrics so that year after year, he could report consistently on what the board deemed are important metrics. And, you know, this data, we got a lot this last go round than the previous batch. We are able to fine tune a lot more. So, you know, we see a docket number, so that gives us all kinds of information, you know, county, location, you know, type of, you know, docket, as well as, you know, a constable. And now we have what services, you know, they did a transport, they did this, they did that, you know, return not found, return whatever. So he wants to go through that with some members and say, let's develop some metrics that every time we get this data, we can compare. So we're looking consistently year to year on that stuff. You know, there's you know, the surcharge was on there. Was it assessed? Was it collected? Those kinds of things. So I would ask if we can have maybe 2 or 3 board members, because we can't have a quorum. You know, we'll set up work group meetings. We can do those remotely, you know, and so he can get your input to what do we, there is a lot of data there this time. We really got a lot to go through. So if you're interested, let me know.
Very interesting.
And we'll kind of put it together and go from
Big
there.
is the file?
What's that?
How large is the file? Bite
I
wise?
couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It's, well, we had over, I think it was 1.5 million lines,
All right.
you know.
So we have to use SQL.
Well, oh no, we already have, so working with Dr. Orth is Charles Garthide.
Oh.
He has specialized software.
He has all that.
Yep, he crunched, so we just tell him what we want to do and he slices it, dices it and gets it back to us.
Nice.
So,
Yeah, I was hoping the numbers gurus would be here today, so.
he wanted to, but like I said, there's been some things lately with PCCD and a lot of their other things. He's been pulled to crunch a lot of data for county stuff, so.
I'll let the good doctor and Charles know that I missed him at the meeting. So.
I will.
All right, we have, next one, you have this other business, and we have, I think we'll open it up to the board. Is there any other business? Is there anything staff has right off the bat?
Well, I do want to take a few minutes, Mr. Chair, to recognize Sherry. I mean, you know, she ran down her litany, kind of stole my thunder a little bit, but that's all right. You know, what I will say to you, you know, when Sherry came to us in 2008, you know, we were kind of a lot of bitter old guys, both in deputy sheriff, you know, of training, you know, and, you know, but Sherry didn't have a lot of knowledge of constables and law enforcement. But what I'll tell you, what she brought was the administrative skills and the organizational skills. Later on top of that, her drive. I mean, Sherry, every time I talk to Sherry, she has a to-do list for me. You know, and that she has worked tirelessly to improve this program. I mean, literally right after the board would implement a new policy, she would start looking, what's the impact? Did that work? Do we need to tweak it again? So I just want to mention, it was a lot of her dedication to make, I mean, she took this very personal to make this program a well-respected and reputable program. She was also, despite maybe some constables out there don't agree, she's always been a constable advocate within PCC. She was always pointed out the importance of constables and the role of the criminal justice system, and that, you know, there is no easy solution to, you can't just get rid of them. You know, a lot of legislators over the years have said, wow, it's, you know, so she is, and even with me, you know, the guy who started the program, she and I have had various disagreements and agreements, but 9 times out of 10, Sherry won because she was able to articulate and convince me that's the better way to go. So I just want to recognize that her dedication and her impact on this program is huge. I just really can't stress that enough. And she will be greatly missed. So,
Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
so
Thank you.
Yep.
Good.
And I will miss it, but after the first week, then we'll talk.
Well, I told her out in the hallway earlier, I said, you can always do the consultant thing, you know, she said, you have to wait 1 year.
No, I did tell her her application for constable basic will be rejected.
There you go.
Yeah, because they've all been teasing me. So when are you running for constable?
There you go. There you go.
Not gonna happen.
Anything else? Other board members? Major, you've been really quiet.
All good?
You're all good? Very much on Major. Trish, you haven't said a whole lot today.
Good. Thank you, Sherry, for all you've done, and it has been such a pleasure working with you over the years. Even before I joined this board, you were always a resource to me personally when I had just general questions, and you're always so helpful and responsive and getting back to me quickly, and I
Thank you.
really do appreciate that.
Well, one of my first assignments with the program was we looked at some of the AOPC data, and Chester County was, I mean, your surcharge collections was phenomenal. And you actually had more surcharges collected than what was assessed. So I met with Trish, and that was probably like 2009, 2010, something like that. So thank you as well. It's been a pleasure.
Anybody else?
Just want to say congratulations to Sherry. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge.
We will be missed for sure.
Absolutely. We all have our first day, and we should all have be able to enjoy the rest of, our days coming. So
Yeah.
Your work ethic speaks for itself. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Judge.
I appreciate it.
Okay, anything else under other business? I see we have listed an executive session. Who's requesting that?
We just the agency needs to update the board on a legal matter.
A legal matter, okay. Do I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a legal matter?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Second. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, we'll move into executive session, and then afterwards, there'll be public voice and an adjournment. So do you anticipate any action after the
No, this is more an informational.
information?
Mr. Chair, could I ask for a 2-minute recess for us, just for, before we go into executive?
New guy wants a recess.
I had a 2-hour drive and my eyeballs are floating.
All right.
And then we will join in the training room for the executive session, so the attorney can.
I'll be a nice guy. I'll give you 3 minutes.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Hello, any other constables on here?
Hi, Abram. This is Jason Knapp.
Hey, Jason. Yeah, so here we go again. We're going against what makes common sense. Why did I hold executive session after public voice? I mean, it's just like a slap in the face. It really is.
I think that's because they want to inform us before we go to public session.
Well, the thing is, though, all they're doing is delaying us because they're not going to tell us anything when they come back from executive session. It's a secret meeting. That's why it's not online here. And all they're doing is delaying us. They're going to come back, say, okay, we're back in executive session. Now we're going to do public voice. Why couldn't they do public voice first? And then when they're done hearing our voice, go do their executive session and then adjourn. If somebody wants to stick around to hear the words we adjourn, they can. But this is just like trying to shake us off their tail, basically.
Yeah, we can leave at any point, though.
That's what they want. They don't want us to have any input. That's the point I'm making. I'm just cynical. Don't mind me.
Yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I have a few points written down here. One, I don't know what your experience is or what part of the state you're from, but when it comes to serving warrants and trying to find updated addresses, when I look on the UJS portal and I find that sometimes the guy I'm looking for has a new case in a neighboring magisterial district or a neighboring county, and I will contact that MDJ's office to try to find the updated address. Maybe 4 out of 5 times I'll have cooperation, no problem. The 5th one will act like I'm asking for secret information, even though I give them all my information about my BOO number and everything. They act like, well, we can't give you that. And it's hit and miss, and it should be uniform, but there should be a way, and I know there is a way, that there is an elevated level of access to the UJS portal where you can have a secure login and you can see the address information for the defendant. And that's what I want to bring up
Yeah.
to them. That's a problem that needs addressed.
Yeah, that's a problem. It's county by county, or judge by judge, I should say. And you're right. It should be uniform all the way across.
What county are you from, and do you run into this problem?
I'm from Bradford County. I live
Okay.
in
You ever run into this or not?
What's that?
Do you ever run into this problem, actually?
I have seen this problem, yes.
So then it's not just me, it's not just my area, it's something they need to address. And it goes to the liaison issue. Yeah, they're the training board for us, and they say that over and over and over. But yet there's an MDJ sitting on this board. There's a PSP person sitting on the board. What are they sitting on the board for? They should be liaisoning with their organizations to help us, to help them to work together.
Yeah, that's very true.
Another thing that I want to bring up is, I don't know if you took the online courses for 2024 yet or not, did you?
No, not yet.
Okay. Well, when we had that snap of cold weather a couple of weeks ago, no time like that to get this stuff done. So I took the course, and there's a slide you'll see in the first part of the course, the part that's on landlord tenant, that says there should be 2 constables on every eviction. And then it says after that, even if you have to split the fee with the second constable. That's a slap in the face.
Yeah,
I mean, there's guys that, I'm retired and this is a supplemental income for me, but there's guys that are trying to put food on their kids' table with this. And you're telling them to choose between putting food on the table and their own safety. That's not right. There needs to be something through the liaison with the MDJs, that the MDJs need to understand this is the consensus of the PCCD. This isn't Constable A or Constable B who maybe is afraid of their own shadow and thinks they need a second constable all the time. This is something that the PCCD recognizes, and they need to start implementing it and charging the landlord accordingly for a second constable.
Yeah.
You do evictions up
there? I haven't, but I know some of the guys around here that have, and it's just them.
Yeah, it's just me here. I do it for a number of magistrates here in Westmoreland County, and it's pretty much just me. But at least the staff will give me a heads up, or a landlord will give me a heads up when somebody is a real screwball, And then I try to take the police with me. I'm lucky if it happens in an area that has local police, that's lucky. If you have an area that has state police, they're basically useless. I had one where I talked face to face to a corporal at the barracks because the magistrate said I should have someone with me. And he promised to have a second constable there, or not a second constable. He promised to have a trooper assigned. I talked to him days ahead of time. He was in charge of this. I talked to him face to face at the barracks. He was to have a second guy there, a trooper to be my second guy. The time came, the time went. Nobody showed up from the PSP. When he was called later, he said, "Oh, well, we had some kind of training or something that came up." It's like, when were you going to tell me that? It's like probably the only reason he would have showed up is to see if I had red and blue lights on my car.
Yeah, right.
It's just, so what's the purpose of having a trooper on our board other than to maybe keep us in line and find out what we're up to? If they're not going to help us.
Yeah.
They don't have any us on their governing board, and the MDJs don't have any us on their oversight board either.
I gotta let my dog in. She's gonna get kind of noisy.
Okay, you do what you got to do, brother. I'll be here.
All right. All right. Come on now.
I'm sorry, are we back on? I can't hear you.
Hello?
Hi, Deborah.
All right, we'll begin in a minute. We're just waiting for two board members to return.
We're live. Okay, it's Chairman Westover. So we're returning from executive session. So I need a motion to go out of the executive session. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, made by Josh. Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Great. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor of going out of executive session, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So carry. All right, so we'll move on to the next part of our agenda, which is public voice. Tracy, do we have anybody signed up for public voice?
Yes, we do have three. The first is Constable Abraham Smith.
Constable Smith, are you online?
I am Chairman Westover. Good morning to the board. First, I'd like to thank Sherry for her service and assistance that she's always provided, and we certainly will miss that. Also like to congratulate John Weiser on his appointment to the board. A couple things I wanted to point out. This is an issue that I've run into. I know other constables have run into. When we are trying to find an address for someone that we have a warrant issued to us on, we will find out through the UJS portal that they have a newer case filed at another MDJ. From time to time, we will contact these other MDJ offices, provide them with any information as to our identity and what we're doing. And sometimes we are running into hesitance in giving us that address information from a new pending case. I'm wondering if there's some way, I'm pretty sure there is some way to get a higher level of access, a login approved access to the UJS portal that would allow us to look up this information without having to call around to magistrates' offices.
That's an AOPC issue.
AOPC. So it looks like an issue that would have to be taken up by Administrative Office of Pennsylvania Courts for their input. Us on a training board would not really have an effect on that.
Right, I understand.
Anything
But
else?
is there some way, is there some way you could liaison with them? Because board to board, when they hear it from you guys, they realize it's not just somebody here or there complaining. Another thing that I'd like to address is I saw during the training session on evictions that you all recommend very wisely that we have a second constable on evictions. I was wondering, since we have an MDJ member on this board, if that person could communicate that is an official observation from the PCCD, and maybe that can filter down through the magistrates, that this is something that should be implemented and that landlords should be paying for the second constable.
Judge Davis, any response to that?
As the magisterial district judge, it is on this board. That is a good question. That is something that I can take back to my colleagues. But that's going to be an authoritative decision depending on that particular MDJ out of that particular court. Each MDJ has the same issuing authority to make their own decisions as to how they would handle that. But to answer Trooper Abraham's question, that is something that I would be more than happy, at least within my jurisdiction, to disseminate amongst my colleagues.
And if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken, that specific situation, it's very clear in the fee bill that says that is a determination made by the DJ. Where in some other situations, like for security purposes, serving warrants, the constable has that decision-making authorities. But if you read the fee bill, I believe that is the one scenario that specifically says at the discretion of the magistrate district judge.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. All right.
Correct. I just think if they had that information brought, that it is an observation of the PCCD, that this is important, that maybe more of them would make that decision and have a second. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Constable.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I could comment on Constable Smith's first request. I'm in full agreement with him on that as far as that is a common issue. I realize it's not this board's decision that we don't have access, but the AOPC, it may not hurt for us to think about, and maybe, I don't know if we even can do it or not. Maybe we should refer to legal if we can, to maybe have that be part of the conversation with the AOPC in regards to constables having a general login to be able to look up dockets and things like that. I'm not asking for criminal. I don't think it's appropriate for criminal history information or anything like that. I know Korea, all the issues with that, but to be able to have a general login where I can log in, and if I'm given a docket TR 123 of 2023 from this court, I can go in there and I can see what the most current address was uploaded into that. And then I can see if there are other warrants associated with that case that may have not been printed at the bottom of that warrant. Maybe this individual that I got a warrant on Monday, on Wednesday, he went out and committed a felony of some sort, and I go to look for him on Friday. If I don't have the ability to log into the system and at least just look at what's there, I'm going to go knock on his door for a traffic warrant on Friday, and here he's wanted for aggravated assault from something that occurred Wednesday, and I'm going to have no idea on whether or not that occurred. So I do think it is beneficial for constables to have some kind of general login to be able to look at the docket information. Again, I'm not looking for criminal history info, the ability to run tags, nothing like that. But if we're entrusted with that docket, with that piece of paper to go and take somebody into custody, I don't see why we can't be entrusted with the ability to verify what else may be out there, especially for constable safety. We preach that safety, safety, safety all the time. It's not safe for me not to have the ability to see what I'm walking into. And without the ability to log into that, you are relying on court staff that may or may not cooperate with you in giving that information. So that's my thought on that.
And I will say the board and PCCD has raised from an officer safety standpoint, that the issue with AOPC as early as 2005, 2007. I know in that 2013, 14, when the board was engaged with AOPC over this CETB, that came up. It has been raised multiple times. That you're right, from a officer safety standpoint, the ability for a constable to be disseminated certain information would be a problem, and it is not. And I hate to say it, but that if legislation, then an agency has to then follow the legislation. So
Generally, everything's falling along the lines of independent contractor.
Right.
And that's their issue,
that's a supervision issue.
Supervision issue. That's what keeps falling off of the agency.
And the AOPC can have supervision of what you're allowed to have access to and not allowed to have access to. It's their system. They can limit you to a general user type where you can go in and you can see docket information based upon your input.
Well, and I can say this, I'm the clean TAC for our agency, I'm the JNet TAC for our agency, CGIS, and actually it's more about the supervision of not just the access. So I can put, what are you doing with that information, the dissemination, those kinds of things. So, our staff have clean access, but I'm responsible for their misuse. So if somebody misused clean and that information, it's on me and the agency then to, so it's that chain of custody type thing. So.
Who's next on the list there, Tracy?
Constable Jason Knapp.
Constable Knapp, you on the line?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak this morning. Hope everyone's doing well. I just had one question and one comment. My question is, based on the earlier conversation regarding the, sort of state of firearms ranges around the Commonwealth, I just wanted to see if the board was open to doing a survey within the constable population to see, what sort of feedback we might be able to get from the various constables who are operating in different counties across the state.
Okay, in regards to what the actual training, or are you talking about the ranges specifically?
Specifically the ranges. You know, what sort of feedback, you know, we can get from other constables on, you know, ranges that might be, you know, well suited for constables to go and use in order for them to, you know, continuing their you know, skills training, you know, throughout the year.
Anything else?
I was looking for some commentary, if the board would be open to conducting a survey to get that feedback.
Well, as far as surveys and that, like I said, we do surveys throughout the history of the program, you know, trying to get response back. As far as, you know, the location of ranges for training, something that anecdotally, you know, sometimes we find out through the various training classes, we find out about other ranges that may be available. But like I said, it's really been a moving target since the pandemic, with ranges that have been going, that are available or not available. And so it's something that I don't know that it can even lock in ranges, because one of the biggest concerns a lot of these ranges have is tying up their facility when they have people that from the public that pay, citizens that pay to, you know, be able to go to that range and shoot whenever they want. And a lot of times they don't want to lock that range down, you know, specifically for training. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest issues when we look at ranges is the board of officers, whoever runs that range, are they willing to contract with us? Are they willing to shut their range down for a period of time in order for us to conduct training?
So just to be clear, to follow up on that, my question is really more around not PCCD training, but rather just the general use of ranges for constables to go and use those facilities to conduct their own practice, their own drills, and so forth throughout the year between trainings. So there was a comment made earlier about trying to get that feedback about, you know, which ranges are available, you know, because obviously there's a lot of places, a lot of counties, a lot of areas the constables are working. So, you know, I think it might be very useful to conduct a survey, again, not with respect to the PCCD training and the use of those facilities in formal training, but rather, you know, the use of these ranges whenever, you know, constables are doing training on their own and practicing on their own. So that would be my question, my comment.
Yeah, anything on your own, like I said, is outside our training program. So, you know, our board, our jurisdiction basically is on any PCCD training that we are doing. And so I would say that that's a deviation. You know, anything that you do on your own, or you have your own training entity, that your own instructors or whatever, that's outside of our bailiwick.
Well, and again, I mean, in all fairness, I mean, the question about the deterioration of skills is, I think, very germane to what constables are doing out there. Was, you know, a long subject that was discussed earlier. So I would say that it very much has a direct impact on the program and on the training, particularly, you know, whenever we're shooting qualifications and we want officers to be showing up well prepared and well trained. So with that, I'll move on to my comment, which is just to say that, you know, to Sherry, for all the great work she's done for all these years. We really appreciate it from the constable community and wish you the very best in retirement.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Constable Knapp. Next one.
The last one is Constable Chuck Sprouse.
Constable Sprouse, you on the line? Yeah, not hearing anything from Constable Sprouse. Do we have anybody else on the line that wishes to do public voice? Try to limit things to 2 minutes. Okay, hearing none, then we'll move on to the next part of the agenda, which is adjournment. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Okay, Davis second. Okay. Any questions on the motion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed?
And I would ask the board to stick around, have some cake with Sherry.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Wrap.